No.
Okay. All right, April, you ready? Okay. The Board of Cosmetology meeting is convening at 10:10 a.m. on August 17th in 2020. I'll now call roll. Michelle Strobel.
Yes.
Frank Watley. Absent. Ragnar Wirt. Absent. Amber Starks. Also absent. Tracy Permo.
Present.
And Hien Win.
Yes.
And Harold Folks.
Present.
Members, during the course of the meeting, please wait to speak until you've been recognized. Once you've been recognized, please state your last name. Audience members, I have taken a roll of the 4 individuals who are currently on the phone. If anybody comes in, I will write that down also. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is now called to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Name.
This is Michelle Strobel. I second the motion.
Okay, who was the first one?
Harold.
So Harold made a motion and Michelle did a second. I will do a roll call, indicate with yay or nay. Michelle?
Yay.
Tracy?
Yay.
Ian?
Yay.
And Harold?
Yay.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, we do have some individuals who are up for retake for examinations. You guys should all have had an issue statement that will give the applicant's number, what type of exam they are to take or wanting to take, and what attempt it was to take. What we have done, what you guys have done in the past, is they either have to do the full program again, or they can sit down with Heather and do a 2-hour study review. One of those 2 things has to be done prior to taking the exam again. If you guys want to change that protocol, that's your prerogative, but that's what you've been doing in the past. Does anybody have any discussions on that?
This is Michelle Strobel. I would agree with the sit down with Heather for the 2-hour review.
Yeah, that's what you guys had offered before, so they get a choice, because we can't make them sit down with Heather if they don't want to. So if they don't want to sit down with Heather, they can go and redo the program. Well, again, that's the full hours of the current program. So they can either go and redo the program. We can get the transcript, which is part of your issue statement. So they either do that, or they sit down with Heather for the 2-hour thing, the 2-hour study review. And I have their files if there's any specific questions anybody wants to ask. Some of them have had study reviews with her, but this would be an offer up of a 2-hour study review versus the 1 hour. I also asked Heather how those study reviews were going, because we kind of changed how remember the rule, we changed the number of attempts and when study reviews would kick in. And so she's done over 313 of those study reviews, and it has an 88% passage rate. So 88% of the individuals who sit down with her end up passing after they sit down with her, which is great.
Great.
Yes, so obviously it's working, so I would encourage you guys to continue offering that. Obviously we can't make them do that, but offering them, either you do the whole program again, or you sit down with her and do a review. So, but any questions on any of these applicants?
No.
Okay, and you'll notice there's actually only 4 applicants, because one of the applicants needs to retake the laws and rules and the nail technology exam. But you guys, if you guys are comfortable with what we've talked about, then somebody needs to make a motion to approve all, and you'll have to say out the applicant numbers. and make a motion to approve that they either retake the program or spend 2 hours in a study review.
This is Tracy Ferramo. I've got a quick question about the two options.
Sure.
Are those the only two options that we have, or is that just kind of what has been done in the past, and so we're kind of just following through with what has been done?
So you have any options whatsoever. So in order for the individuals to take the exams again after a certain amount of time, it must go before the board. So thus it is going before the board right now. But what we have done, and I can give you a history of stuff for those of you who are newer to this, but what we're currently doing is what the board has made a decision on in the past. That does not mean you can't change it. You are welcome to change it. But what we were doing in the past was basically, we've changed it several different times as the board's gone along. But mind you, this is the 8th attempt, like this first person on the list, it's their 8th attempt of taking this exam. So this person also has had a study review. So they got the first time, the first time they took it, they got a 17%. And so what we have done in the past is we were doing, based on your average pass-fail rate, you have to take a certain percentage of the schooling again. And then the board kind of got away from that and it said, look, if you can't pass this after study reviews and studying and all that stuff, then we also cannot make you go to a certain school. So the board discussed basically, and Michelle can add in here because she's been on the board for a while, but the board kind of discussed, we can't say, well, you now need to go to a different school because they either weren't teaching you or weren't making sure that you understood what you were supposed to be learning. And so it's like, okay, well then you just have to take the program again because you didn't retain enough of it to be able to pass the exam. Does that help, Tracy? And Michelle, you're welcome to add.
It does. Yeah, it does help. It seems, a far swing from a 2-hour review to completing your entire program over again. Seems like two, pretty extreme, options there. And I was, from being working inside of the school, completing your entire program again, so much of the program has been dedicated timing-wise to the actual service mark-off and not necessarily the, written portion of it. And I'm wondering if there's English as a second language is part of the obstacle and things like that, and wondering if we may have some other options as far as that's concerned.
So this is Sylvie. You got to remember that English is not the only language that we offer the exam in.
Correct. I just, from personal experience, we've had a student here at the school that her native language was not one of the ones as an option to take the test in, and she had, not passed. This was before I was on the board, and she had not passed up to 8 times as well, and so the ruling was for her to take the entire program all over again. But, her work is beautiful. Her work is magnificent. It's just English being not her first language made it an obstacle to pass the test. And I, would hate for more people to end up in that circumstance. So, but I mean, I really appreciate the 2-hour study period, and I hope that can help, facilitate a successful test for them. Just curious.
Yeah, Michelle, did you want to add to any of that?
No, I agree, and it seems to be, way over here or way over there, but it seems like they're missing some, and if they're not able to do it in the review, we're open to other options of, maybe reviewing but this is where we're at for right now, and we appreciate your input.
Thanks. I don't know how, this is Tracy Prom again, I don't know how it would be monitored if it was a requirement to go back and complete the amount of hours to do the actual book work instead of for the entire length of the duration of the entire program. I'm unfamiliar with how that would be, governed or assessed feel like that would be the biggest benefit, was the actual reviewing the book work over and over again.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? All right, so somebody needs to make a motion to do whatever it is you guys want to do. Do you guys want to still discuss it and maybe change what we're requiring, or are you comfortable staying with how it's been?
I feel like, this is Tracy Plum again, I feel like if these applicants have not had the 2-hour study session, that would be a good first step. So I don't know how to word it exactly, but I move for applicant 099357 have this 2-hour study period. Is that correct?
So this is Sylvie. It'll be easier. Okay, I can make the motion and then one of you can say so moved and then somebody else can second it, just because of knowing what the verbiage needs to say. But I want to make sure that it's clear that that's not requiring them to do the 2-hour alone. They can either pick and choose. So
right.
They can either do the whole, go back to school and do the whole hours, or they can spend 2 hours with us doing a study review. I don't feel that we can require them to sit down with us. I mean, you can, I guess, if you want, but it's kind of their choice. So is everybody comfortable with that choice?
Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, and one of you can say so moved, say your name first, and then say so moved. But it is proposed that applicant number 099357 and applicant number 104487 and applicant number 127332 and applicant number 131416 all either repeat the educational program for which they need in order to take the exam again, or schedule and sit down for a 2-hour study review with HLO staff.
This is Tracy Promo. I'm so moved.
Thank you, Tracy.
This is Michelle Strobo, and I second the motion.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. I will now call roll. Michelle?
Yay.
Tracy?
Yay.
Ian?
Yay.
And Harold?
Yay.
All right, motion carries. Moving on. So Cerinthia is here in the room with me. She's going to give you a little bit of an update on the natural hair care exam. Here. Oh, here we go. Hang on.
So, in March, you guys had, the board voted for the natural hair care training module with the addition of the shampoo and conditioning based on the passage of Senate Bill 422.
It's House
you guys?
No, Senate Bill 422, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I thought you said 1422. I'm like, sorry.
422, no. So do you guys all remember that with the addition of that? And I think at that meeting we discussed that I was going to do a comprehensive review of the entire training module and the examination, because it hadn't had a complete overview since 2014 when it was implemented based on the 2013 legislation that added natural hair care under the Board of Cosmetology. So since March, what I've done is I did a complete comprehensive review of the training module and the examination, and you guys all have an issue statement in front of you. Additional content was added to the training module to reflect the actual current practice of natural hair care, the Oregon revised statutes, and the Oregon administrative rules. In addition, the examination was also updated to add additional domains and questions to reflect those revisions in the natural hair care training module. The number of questions, so this is all a draft for the board to vote on. The number of questions increased from, or to 100 from 41, and the amount of time to complete the natural hair care examination was increased to 90 minutes. Candidates still must achieve a passing score of 75%. So in the documentation that you have, if you look at the information bulletin, what it will show you is the new domains and the number of questions within each of those domains. And then that would be on the first page. And then on the second page, it breaks those domains down into additional subsets that really specify what the content is to support those domains. So we have really aligned this with the other fields of practice under the Board of Cosmetology, and it's just a comprehensive examination, just like the other fields of practice, and it really specifies what those individuals need to study from the training module, and then when they need to take this examination. So,
Good job.
thank you.
So this is Sylvie. So to add to what she was saying is she's got we have reviewed it, but a really good training module that helps all these individuals, because remember, they don't have to go to a school. So she has created a training module that answers all these questions for them, so they can go through that training module and know the answers, hopefully, as long as they're studying. They'll know the answers to the questions and should pass. But it's a very well put together training module that they get kind of like as a study guide, since there's no schooling. So we did not include that in here because it's
160.
That's like 168 pages or something. It's really, really, really big.
160.
But basically, Cynthia has also obviously written the exams for all of our other questions and knows how to do all that. But so we did not include the study guide in here because it's so large, but we did include the memo and what the exam now looks like. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
No, but you did a good job.
You guys are easy. Thank you. So, if nobody has any questions, what we need is an approval to accept.
Conference with the COS Board. They had a 10 o'clock meeting.
So it is.
Okay, somebody's phone's not on mute.
That's Carrie Weed. I can tell by her voice.
Hey, Carrie.
No, this is Carrie Weed, and I am muted.
It sounded like you. Sorry. My apologies.
Hey, I'm totally
And a person hasn't been here for 7 days or more, then you don't.
Okay, so there's a public member who's on the phone who does not have their phone muted, and we can hear you.
They're upset because nobody told them about her, but we just found out about her on Tuesday.
Okay, so whoever just, hey. Do we get the phone muted? There we go, okay. Sorry. Board members, back to the natural hair care. So if you guys don't have any questions, comments, or concerns, or anything you want to discuss or ask us about for the natural hair care, we need you to vote on approving the natural hair care training module and the natural hair care exam.
This is Michelle Strobel. I move that we accept the natural hair care training module and examination.
This is Harold. I second the motion.
A motion has been made and seconded. I will call roll. Michelle?
Yay.
Tracy?
Yay.
And Ian?
Yay.
And Harold?
Yay.
Excellent. Thanks, you guys. All right, moving on. Director's report. You'll notice we do have a COVID-19 tab, so we'll try to keep all that combined at one little spot. So, director's report, vacancies. We are extremely short-staffed. Obviously, with COVID-19, we're having some issues with, I wouldn't say necessarily issues, but a lot of people are working from home. However, we're still open to the office. at the office to the public, and we are all, the whole state, not just our office, is pretty much on a hiring freeze. So if you have vacant positions, you really can't be filling them, and you have to get authority or approval to fill them. So we currently have, Bob's got an investigator, one investigator, he's short, and he's also short 2 inspectors, and obviously the inspectors are the ones that go out and inspect the facilities. The licensing section is also short several positions, which makes it really tough. Even though people are working from home, we are still open and open by appointment only. We'll get into more details about that under the COVID. And then the other thing is we were under the impression Frank was going to call in, but Frank's term is up in November, so this might have been either this one or he may attend in November. Might be his last board meeting, but obviously he's not on the phone, so it's hard for us to know. But we did have a recommendation from the governor's office, so hopefully that person will get appointed by the governor. But other than that, the rest of the positions aren't vacant or don't come vacant for quite some time. It looks like in 22. So any questions on any of that real quick?
No.
Okay. Moving right along, licensing. So if you look at your statistics, your licensing slide, so again, it shows licenses issued and then renewals processed, and that's just a whole lot of numbers. I think the trend lines are a little bit more easier to understand. The next slide shows examination statistics, so the pass-fail rate broken out by all the different exams. The next slide shows the long-term trend, which is one I think is easier to comprehend, about the number of average licensees by quarter broken out by the different fields of practice. So you got barber, aesthetics, hair care, nail technology, and natural hair care. And so pretty steady, which is good. Next slide just shows those same individuals broken out into a pie chart. The next slide shows both cosmetology facilities, independent contractors, and freelance authorizations. Again, really steady, which is good. For those of you who are around long enough, this slide changed quite a bit in, what was it, 09? Was it 09 when the economy... So we're watching these because the economy is going to start getting hugely affected by COVID, and so this is where we really want to watch. Where back in 09, some of these numbers changed quite a bit because people got laid off from their other jobs or didn't have another job and went back to, quote, doing hair or nails, and so numbers changed a lot in both this and the practitioner one when the economies changed. So we'll keep an eye on that. Next slide just shows those same information again on a pie chart. And then the last statistics chart is the financials, and as you'll note there that cosmetology is running out of money. So we do have, when we get to the legislation bullet, our policy report 2021 legislation, we're going to talk a little bit more about the details of how we're going to fix this. But it's basically the cost of being a part of the Oregon Health Authority is driving up where we have to start increasing fees. So you can see there that it shows the revenues for 17, 18, 19, and so far in 2020. And then expenditures, and you can see the expenditures keep going up. And revenues are staying, pretty similar, but that's the issue, is that the amount of revenue is not enough to cover the expenses. And like I said, when we get down to a couple bullets more, I'll get into way more detail how we're going to fix that. But you can see there that the ending cash balance now is in the negative. So that's again where we need to get that fixed. So, but like I said, I'll get into...
Can I ask a question in regards to your pie chart?
Absolutely.
This is Harold. So one of the things that has been popping up amongst some of the barbers out in the community was they want to start freelancing. So basically they wanted to go mobile. And I wanted to, and I think I sent you an email about a month ago in regards to that. You sent me a form. So in order to become a freelance mobile barber or mobile cosmetologist or what have you, you have to go fill out that paperwork, and it's almost like having a separate license. Am I correct?
Correct. So a freelance license allows a practitioner to operate outside of a licensed facility. So a licensed... Yep. So you have to take in...
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, no, you have to take in the legal definitions of everything. And so I get that the individual wants a mobile facility. There's no such thing in Oregon, so it doesn't matter what you call it, because the way that a facility is defined legally is by a standalone in a building that doesn't move, that's set location. So,
right.
Yeah, so the only way to get to be able to quote, be able to work outside of that, regardless of what you're doing and how you're doing it, is with the freelance license. So if they have a mobile, so if they have a mobile, they can have whatever they want. They can work out of their car. They can do whatever. They can, but you have to have your freelance license and be able to do that. And then you have to, you have to pass the laws and rules exam again, and then you have to pass it. I do believe it's every 3 years. And you must maintain the same type of safety sanitation as if you were in a facility. Obviously, there's some nuances to that, but that's what that license,
I think what they were talking about, and I think that what they were talking about was sort of working out of a van and making it nice and things like that. And I think that just sort of came up, and I just thought, hey, let me ask about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a freelance license would cover anybody. So legally, a freelance license allows any practitioner to work outside of a facility.
Got it.
Okay.
This is Tracy Promo. Is there a time frame I know the license has a time frame, but because I've had the same question. I've had a couple of people ask me about, being mobile and having a little trailer sort of thing, having a small salon in a trailer, but it being mobile. And is there a time frame that they can work out of that specific vehicle or whatever? Because it seems as if they have it for a long term and they're moving around, that's something that, quote, should be inspected or could be inspected, but from what I understand about a freelance license, there's no inspection happening. So is there a predetermined time that they can work out of a vehicle before it's considered an actual inspectable location?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So here's kind of what would most likely end up happening. So most likely somebody would submit a complaint, and then we would have an investigator get a hold of said person, and so that might be how some information gets achieved, but officially a freelance license just allows you to work outside or away from a facility.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions about the freelance stuff?
No, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Okay, any other questions about any of the statistics before we move on? Okay, we're on the regulatory report.
Hi, good morning, this is Bob Bothwell. So we're still showing 3 biennium on the cosmetology report. What you got, we've closed 1 case in 2017, so that brings it down to 4 cases remaining open. And without getting into too much detail, those cases that remain open, a lot of times it's likely we stop getting communication from the complainant and the investigators move on to something else because it just becomes, that's not important, it's just their priorities have to change. So we're working on getting those closed out. In the 17-19 biennium, we had a total of 387 complaints received and 38 of those remain open. And currently we've had 276 complaints and 142 remain open in the 19-21 biennium. Questions? Concerns?
No, but thank you.
Okay, this is Sylvie again. We'll move on. So we're on policy report. So I've got a couple things to talk about. So earlier when I was talking about the fees and the finances and, fees not needing to increase. So I worked with so we're part of the public health. So I worked with public health. They're creating what's called a POP, which is a policy option package. So mind you, we're part of public health, and then public health is then a part of the Oregon Health Authority. So the Oregon Health Authority as a whole, as a big, huge agency, goes forward with all their, what they call them POPs, because in the state of Oregon we love acronyms, so it's a policy option package. So they have a whole bunch of packages. You got to remember the Oregon Health Authority is also underneath Oregon Health Authority is the Oregon Health Plan. Public health, which obviously is very busy with COVID-19, so they have a lot of policy packages. And so our office actually has two, one of which cosmetology is a part of. And in that, we had to do a narrative about what the fees currently are, when they became what they currently are, and then what we feel that they need to go to. And so that will be a policy package that goes before the legislation, which does not start until February of next year. So February of 21, legislation will start. And in our policy package, we're increasing fees. We're trying again to keep the fees lower for individuals who are straight out of school. They will go up. All fees are going up. But we tried to keep the fees for new individuals coming straight out of school and getting their license for the first time, still keeping those lower. And then upon renewal, it will be higher. And then increase the fees for the license for the facilities, independent contractors, and all that stuff. Again, that will go before the legislation as a policy package. If it gets passed, there's a lot of things that could happen between now and then. But if it gets passed, then it will go into effect January 1 of 22, which means that we will continue operating with fees the same as they currently are and operating in the negative until, it won't magically come out of the negative on January 1. But on January 1, we'll start being able to collect the revenue to help offset the negative balance. Does anybody have any questions on that? And there's a lot more to that process, and it gets way complicated, but that's kind of the big picture of what's going to happen. Okay.
Sylvie, before
yes,
you go.
Absolutely.
Maybe I don't have I'm looking at the slide. So how much is it going up for the fees?
That is not that's not been 100% decided. So it will, that will kind of depend. So I said bigger picture, here's what the goal is. So what we currently have is where we have the fees lower for your, brand new out of school people, because they got to take tests and get a license and all that stuff. And then once they've been working for a while, then they can afford more to renew their license than to, So I was more of here's the concepts that we're trying to do, and then obviously business licenses, those are people who already have a business or have enough money to have a business. And so those licenses will be more. I'm thinking, I'm not 100% positive, because some fees are not going up at all, and then some fees have to go up a little bit, and then some fees have to go up a lot. So what we're trying to do is, again, focus on less expensive for, the new people right into the field, and then doing the bare minimum amount of increase that we can to get the board back on its feet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So to answer, Sylvie?
Yes.
Harold again. So to answer your question, we don't know exactly how much it's going to be, $50, another $100, but we know that it's going up right now.
Right. I think it wasn't doubling. So right now I think A facility renewal, I do believe, is $110 a year, and I think it's going up. I think because we did it, because there's some, like I said, some fees not going up, so I think it's like a 25%. So I think it's going up, I think, to $150, I think is what, so this is a $40 increase, I think. But again, this is what we're saying, here's what we suggest. It comes down to the legislation. So it's called, like I said, there's way more to this. The legislation has to, what's called ratify the fees. So they have to approve those fees. So it has to go before them. They'll have to ask their questions, give their input. Mind you, they have a whole process. There's a bunch of people who are going to look at it before the actual legislators look at it. And so, which is why I'm not 100% sure what the fees are going to be. We also have another policy package, which is for a different board, and their fees are doubling. I mean, literally doubling, which is not you guys. So, but when I know more, I will tell you more. Does that sound good?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Michelle. Who decides how much those fees are going to go up?
Well, it depends on what rationale they want us to use it. So if they agree with me on students shouldn't, right out of school, it should be cheaper for them to get into the field than it is for somebody to renew after they've been in the field for 2 years, because you got to remember this license is good for 2 years. As long as they agree with that, and they agree that a business can afford to pay $40 more and a student only pays, say, $10 more per license, and as long as they agree with my rationale, then those numbers will stay the way they are. If they choose to not agree with my rationale and say, no, we just want a blanket, everything should just go up, say, 20%, again, legislation gets to make that decision. Usually they will follow what our recommendations are because we are dealing with it on a day-to-day basis and understand, but that's not always the case. I have a real hard time committing to anything because knowing how many people get to touch this.
This is Michelle. I just wanted to know, so when you say they, that's the legislation.
Correct, sorry, yes.
It's not us as a board making that decision. That's why I asked, so who's making that decision? So is it you and a couple other people? Who is it?
Right, okay, so from our office, so it's me, and then we have somebody they're called a fiscal analyst. So he works up in Portland. So him and I sat down and we went through every single entire fee, because he originally had just done the blanket, their fees need to go up by this much, and I'm like, wait, no, we need to, let's slow down here and kind of go one at a time. So him and I came up with a proposal of, here's what we think we could do, and so him and I came up with that. And then it went to Public Health's Director's Office, and so they all reviewed it, asked a few questions, and then once they approved it, they sent it on to the Oregon Health Authority's Director's Office, and he went through everything, and he had a few questions. And then once him and his office approved it, then it became a policy option package, which means it's part of the Oregon Health Authority as a whole's budget. Then he, meaning the director, Pat Allen, and I would assume that they'll probably call me down there too. We will go down to the legislation in February and we will talk to them. So we'll go through all the policy option packages. Mind you, he's got probably like 150 of them. And the legislators will then get to ask us questions. Usually they have questions prior to, so they send them to us so that we're prepared to answer them when we're down at the Capitol. And then they'll go through and either approve or deny every one of those 150 some policy packages. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of steps to it. But in the statutes, just to make sure that it's clear, in the statutes, the boards absolutely none of our boards, and we have 16 of them, none of the boards and programs get to decide what the fees are. So the fees are decided by the office and the legislation. With the intent of the fees are enough to cover the cost of operating the program and not to make a profit. Does that make sense?
Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And knowing that the Board of Cosmetology is in the negative, which is why it's glad that you're part of one of 16, because because the office cannot go into the negative. So, which means that we have other boards that are currently helping offset the negative balance for the Board of Cosmetology, which is also scary because the Board of Cosmetology is our largest number of licensing group.
Yes, and just a few years ago, we had so much more.
Yes, and so one of the big cost factors is when we were independent in our own independent agency, the costs were different than they are now us being a part of the health authority, and that is in there. So the legislators will know that because that's written in that policy package. That, because we haven't had to raise fees since I do believe, I can't remember when we raised fees last. It's been a long time. I think it was 12 years ago. I think it's been 12 years since last time we had to raise fees. So, and mind you, but I think, would we do it I think it was last year. The COVID-19 have really got my ears all messed up, but I think it was in December of last year, we quit offering the reduction for renewing online for practitioners and independent contractors and facility licenses. So we had been offering a discount if you renewed online, and we took that discount away as soon as the board started going into the negative. But again, the reason it's going in the negative is because the expenses are more than the revenue coming in, because it's more expensive to be a part of the health authority than it was when we were out in independent. Okay. Any other questions on fees, finances, monies? I'll report more. I'll know a whole lot more in November. All right. Next thing, I did get an email. Sammy and I both got an email from the esthetician, the group of estheticians that were working on legislation during the short session. And as you know, short session it was extremely short. It didn't go as long as they thought it was going to go because the senators walked out and there wasn't enough individuals to pass any bills. So they are going to continue working on defining what advanced aesthetics and basic or standard aesthetics is, trying to get some clarity on that stuff. So they're still working on that. They touch bases with us. We're going to work with them on that, help them if they need anything. I have yet to see any language, but we'll keep you informed of that. And then the other thing is that we've been working with HEC. So HEC is the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. They're bringing again, it's called a POP, which is a policy option package. They're bringing one forward through HEC, not through us. And Sammy's been working on that and can give you more details on the verbiage of it. But basically what we're going to do is we've been working together about getting the curriculum moved over to our office. So this office and the board, you guys, will be in charge of the cosmetology curriculum. They will still be in charge of licensing schools and teachers and all that stuff. But Sammy, if you would unmute your phone and give the board a little bit of update on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so this is Sammy. The first thing that Sylvie said is that the board, if it passes, would be determining what the curriculum looks like for cosmetology schools for each field of practice. That would begin January 1 of 2022. The way it's written now, of course, can change, is that anybody that becomes a school after that date would align with the new curriculum, and then anyone that is currently already a licensed school would just continue going with what they already have. The other thing that it does is currently if somebody comes from out of state or out of country with no license, they maybe just had education, the license lapsed for whatever reason, they go to the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, have their information reviewed, and generally they're sent to a school. That would also be coming to us to oversee that, and we wrote it in the bill so it's pretty specific that if they don't meet the general requirements that we have now, then we would send them for an assessment. So it's real specific instead of being kind of up in the air on how it's going to go. And then the third thing it would do is currently schools pay as part of their application fee, somewhere in their fees, for the Board of Cosmetology to inspect their schools for safety and infection control. Since we were doing everything else and kind of taking it out of HEC's arena, and safety and infection control is also in our arena, we'll be having each school, if passed, get a facility license, and they would only be required to do what the safety and infection control requirements are of the facility. So not like everybody has to be licensed in a facility, so it would just be the safety and infection control requirements. And they would pay the same fee. I don't know if I'm assuming they would take that fee out of the applicant fee for schools, but I don't know that for sure.
So this is...
You have to ask them about that.
Right, this is Sylvie. So at the end of every year, currently what is going on is HEC submits that fee over to us, so they transfer the money over to us to pay for the inspections. So that would stop. So obviously if they're not going to collect the money, then they shouldn't be charging the schools the money because they're not going to be transferring it to us anymore. So that would be the point of that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the three big things that the new law would change if passed.
Anybody have any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to COVID-19. Okay. A lot of updates for you on this. A couple things are the office created a couple real quick rules immediately back in, well, we created them as temporary rules back in March and then scrambled to get them all permanent and everything. So in the office's rules, there's a few rules that pertain to everybody all 16 boards and programs that are underneath of us. And I'm going to go through a couple of them. So those rules were filed as temporary rules that have now become permanent because this is not a temporary pandemic. So in the office's rules, one of the things that we did to make sure that, and that's very specific to COVID-19 and the state of emergency and the declaration by the governor of how long the emergency goes. But for one of them is the delinquency fees. So if you are current on the date of the declared emergency, so if your license and you were in good standing as of March 31st of 2020, then your late fee will only be $1 versus and it goes for all boards, so, and every board's late fee is a little bit different. So it reduces it down to $1 versus it being either $50, $75, $25, whatever that board was. But you had to have been current. So, because what we realized is, some people are obviously all of a sudden not working. And so if they couldn't afford to renew their stuff, we had to charge something. We could not discount it down to zero by reading the statute. So it's down to $1. So that's one. The other one is that we wrote another rule that says that you must abide by all the executive orders, and so there's a temporary rule that's in place right now, and we're making a more of a permanent rule one that's going to be a little bit clearer. But basically, if you are not abiding by the executive order, which is the orders that come out from the governor's office, and then the new rule will also have not just executive orders, but any other guidelines issued by the health authority. So it's basically you must abide by those. So as you guys know, there's the public services guidelines that were published from the governor's office, which talk about not just cosmetology, but several of our boards, but what you should and shouldn't be doing in your salon, and how you make sure that your employees are healthy, and the temperature, and you're making sure that you're asking the appropriate questions of clients, all that kind of stuff. So this rule just says that if you're not abiding by that, then we can take disciplinary action against you. Did somebody just log in? Uh-oh, I lost somebody. Michelle, are you still there?
Yep.
Tracy?
I'm here.
And Ian?
Yes, I'm here.
And Harold, are you still there? Uh-oh. Harold?
Harold?
Apologize.
Oh, you're still there. Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, and the last one, which doesn't really pertain to you guys, because you guys don't require continuing education, but some of your licensees are both licensed through this board and through Advanced Aesthetics. But the other thing is that during the state of emergency for the COVID-19, we allow for continuing education hours to be done either online, remote, webinar, self-study. Obviously, people are not, quote, getting together in rooms and having continuing education seminars, and so we're obviously allowing for that. Again, that would be more towards your people who also had advanced aesthetics license. So those are the rules that the office hurried up and quickly did. We got a couple others. So one of the other ones, not that this necessarily pertains to you guys, but we also have respiratory therapists, and as you know, respiratory therapists right now are probably the number one needed medical personnel. So we allowed for individuals from other states to come here, and also wrote a rule to allow individuals who were retired to reactivate their license to help with the state of emergency. So been really busy with all the COVID-19 stuff, but so those are a lot of the rules. And then the office currently, we are open. We shut down, I do believe, for maybe a week or two to try and scramble and figure out what we were going to do. So we are still open. The public cannot just walk in here though. We are by appointment only. So we encourage everybody to either renew online or through the mail, but we still are allowing individuals to come in here and test, but it is by appointment only. Obviously you have to wear masks and all that, but our testing room is now down to only having, I do believe it's 6 stations in there, because for those of you who've seen it before, it's we try to cram as many testing stations as humanly possible into that room. Thus, we cannot have everybody at every station because they will not be 6 feet apart. And then you have to also be careful of the fact that when you walk in, you are either within too close a proximity to somebody. So it's really limited what we were able to do, but we still are offering, exams. And then we also we have another, we call it the ADA room. So if it's not booked for an ADA accommodation, then we will also use that for booking for appointments only for taking the test to get a license. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so I talked a little bit earlier about guidelines, and so those guidelines are published. There's a link on our website to the Governor's Office website. But I'm going to have Bob talk a little bit about how the complaints and inspections have been going with the COVID-19. And then those guidelines, because his 3 inspectors, because we only have 3 inspectors at the moment, are the ones who are out trying to educate on that. But Bob sitting here is going to fill you in.
Hi, it's Bob again. So we've had just an onslaught of folks calling in with concerns as they go into facilities or as they walk by a facility, with folks not following the governor's executive orders. So thus far, we've opened up 208 complaints regarding the COVID, where folks are not distancing, using PPE or anything like that. 103 of those are closed, 72 are still remain to be opened, and there's 33 left on the list to do. So, and I noticed on my computer this morning I had another 3 that haven't even been assigned. So what the inspectors are doing is they're going out and educating folks, but they're also doing an inspection. They're all still trying to do their route work as well to keep the inspection flow going. And the reports back have been Pretty good. Only a couple facilities where the folks inside the facility were not going to follow the governor's executive orders. So what we're doing is we leave them the information, we leave them the blue sheet, and we call it corrective action here, where we try to educate them, but we will go back, and if they're still not in compliance after a couple weeks, then we'll use the new rule and we'll issue a notice of intent, and those will come before you to decide what civil penalty or what should be done with that. So we're busy. Any questions? Concerns? Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still there.
Yeah, sorry.
Open times, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Bob,
Yes, sir.
what has been the most common complaint about the shops that you've been hearing?
It is no mask and encouraging clients not to wear masks. Those two are right up there and the most concerning.
Okay, got it. Because according to the mandate from the state, they're supposed to be taking temperatures, writing down addresses, they're supposed to be partitions, etc., correct?
Well, it depends. Partitions, if you can't be 6 feet apart, and yes, they're supposed to be taking information down of who's coming into the facility and for contact tracing.
Right, and the temperatures are supposed to be taken, correct?
No. This is Sylvia. Temperatures are not required to be taken of clients.
Oh, okay, because that's what we're doing at our shop.
It's a choice. This is so. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. I mean, if you want to do it, that's great. But the guidelines.
Well, here's the issue. Somebody comes in with 103 temperature, 102 temperature. It's like we don't want them in the shop.
Great.
Well, I always thought that we had to. I thought that was state mandated, but if I'm, I didn't know that. Okay. You're telling me no, it's not state mandated.
The guidelines, so in the guidelines, there's things that are recommended, and then there's things that are required.
Okay, so that's recommended, but it's not required.
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
This is Tracy Cromwell. Bob, when they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, is there an automatic go back and check in a couple of weeks, or do you wait until you have another complaint filed? What does the process look like?
It's a couple of weeks, and we'll go back, and yes, there are times where we get multiple complaints, and so we record those complaints, because if we do have to issue a notice, it has some evidentiary value to supporting us if the board does decide to issue a civil penalty or other action on the licensee.
Thank you.
So yeah, with 3 people, it's really difficult to turn around and run back out there for the entire state.
Right. Right, thank you.
Okay.
So this is Sylvie. We're not the only ones who are out. I mean, we're the only ones who do like a quote cosmetology inspection to make sure that you are following the cosmetology safety sanitation. So OSHA, there's a whole bunch of places that are out there. So OSHA's out there. So that kind of makes a difference if they're independent contractors or if they're employees. If they're an employee and the employee has made a complaint against the employer, so that may be OSHA and BOLI. So you've got to remember, there's a whole bunch of us agencies that are out there working on this stuff. You also have your local public health departments who are out there. If they're getting complaints, they're going out and making inspections too. They're obviously looking at different things that we're looking for, but we're all trying to do this together, and we're all trying to educate, and we're all trying to help each other, and say, because we'll go, and if they're a bunch of independent contractors, then Oregon OSHA doesn't have any say because they're not employees. So they may turn that over to us, or we have a complaint about a business owner not following all the mandates. And so we're always back and forth, all this communications with other individuals. Speaking of which, there's a meeting right at the moment that Bob and I are missing because we're on the phone call with you to talk about the whole state of Oregon, how to make sure that everybody is abiding by all the public service protocols and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just us out there. I mean, obviously we're the only ones that are cosmetology specific, but we're all trying to work together on this.
And this is Bob, if I can add to the meetings that we attend every Thursday. I meet via phone with Deschutes County, Public Health, Fire Department, Police Department, Parks and Recreation, to hear what they're doing and the issues they're having, and to share. They're interested in what their cosmetology and body art facilities are doing and what kind of complaints we're receiving on that end as well. So we share a lot of information, and we try not to play in each other's backyard too much. Because everybody's busy. I get several emails a week from OSHA where they have got a complaint, reviewed it, then determined that it was ours, and vice versa. And even though it's a cosmetology one where there's employees involved, I have no problem sending an email over to not to public health, but to OSHA to let them know that this is a complaint that's coming out of that area, and they may have or may be news to them as well. So yeah, it's juggling a lot of balls at one time.
Yep. This is Sylvie, and I'm also on a group email chat that we're always talking with, and it's all the executive directors from every state. And every state calls it a little bit different, but it's every state's cosmetology board. Different states have different terminologies, but so it's all of us executive directors for cosmetology, and we're all talking about how things are going. Like California, as you know, California shut back down, and so their executive director was talking to a bunch of us about being able to do things physically outside, like outside of a facility. And again, that's where that whole freelance conversation just came into place again. And so, we're all trying to, help each other and figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how to communicate, because we're all in a kind of strange place at the moment. So, any other questions about COVID-19? Any suggestions or anything you guys are hearing that you think we need to know or we may not already know?
This is Tracy Promo. People have been reaching out about working outdoors, if that's something we're moving towards, those sorts of things, and I just keep telling them I haven't heard anything about it, but there's a lot of talk on the street about that. Yeah,
this is Sylvie. I think if the state of Oregon moves back to phase 0, I think it's phase 0 when we're closed. They don't call it phase 0, the baseline phase, whatever they call it. But back to where facilities are closed again, then those conversations will come up big. But the whole point of her meaning the governor's office, going back to that phase 0 or the baseline, whatever you want to call it, would be that she doesn't want those people working. So the odds of, this is where it happened in California, so the point of going back to phase 0 or whatever it is where the places are closed is that you are not to be working. That's the whole point of it. So then to turn around and say, oh, well, I can do it outside, is taking away from the point of why it was shutting them back down. So if Oregon does that, I'm sure those conversations will happen again. But as of right now, practitioners are not being prevented from working. And if you want to work outside, you must have a freelance license.
Outside or outside the facility?
Outside of the facility, you must have a freelance license. If you are working outside of the facility, even if you are on the front steps of the facility, you are not within the facility, then you must have a freelance license. Any other COVID-19 stuff? Okay. Let's move on to, we are on public comments. Let me find my little script here. At this time, the Board of Cosmetology will hear public interested parties' feedback. Members, I will call out your name, and then you just let me know whether or not you want to make a statement. And if you do, then please state your full name and your affiliation to the board. So those of you on the phone might want to unmute yourself now. I'm going to go through the list and then I'll get to the end, and if I don't name somebody, then I'll ask you. So Denise D'Angelo, are you still on the phone?
I am on the phone.
Denise, would you like to make a statement or have any feedback on anything?
I do not and would not. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. All right. Carrie Weed, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Perfect, Carrie. And Carrie, would you like to make a public or interested parties feedback or comment?
No, I think it's fantastic. I just had a quick question about the natural hair portion of it. That training module that you're referring to, is it possible to, where do we find that information? Is it possible to get a copy of it? Where is it on the, the website?
This is Cerinthia. Excuse me. Currently, it's the current module is on the website. This one will go into effect as of October 1st, and it will be on the website as well.
Okay.
And I will be sending an outreach letter to all interested parties, letting them know. It's already prepared. Basically, I had to wait for the board to tell me what they wanted to do. And so you should probably have that letter here within the next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But thank you for everybody's hard work. I appreciate it. And the communication.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. And Karen Dykeman, are you still on the phone? All right. Tracy Straub. Tracy, are you still on the phone? Okay. Is there any public members on the phone that I did not call your name? All right, well that was easy. Okay, we are now on to other board business. Is there anything anyone wants to talk about or to make sure is on the agenda for our next board meeting, which is November 2nd?
This is Harold. I think the obvious one will be the governor's mandate of opening or closing shops. That we probably need to discuss that.
This is Sylvie, absolutely. So if there's some sort of change that she is going to implement, or other than continuing to move either to moving forward in phases, and as you know, I do believe it was Malheur County. I think it was Malheur County. Is the only county so far that has had to go back a phase. So they were in phase 2 and they had so many outbreaks that the governor moved them back to phase 1.
Right.
But for cosmetologists, there's no difference between phase 1 and phase 2.
Sure. But here's my issue. According to the CDC, they are anticipating spikes during the fall, winter time, specifically late October, November time frame. So I just think it's a good idea just to have that on the agenda if that happens. I hope we don't go back to zero, but I just think it's a good idea we have that as a topic.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is we'll continue to just have COVID-19 as a bullet point on the agenda until it's over.
Sure.
Because there's,
okay.
Yeah, because COVID-19 is really affecting our office in many different ways. And I would love just to keep all of our boards up to date on how we're dealing and what we're doing. So we'll keep that on there so we can talk about anything. If there's some sort of major change that she does, we may reach out to you guys and have a little special board meeting if it's something that either you guys need to make a decision on, or if we need to if we need to get the word out. We have everybody's contact information anyways. And you're always welcome to email any of us and say, hey, can we talk about A, B, and C or whatever stuff too. So yes, we'll go ahead.
Yes, and I've reached out to Mike before in regards to a couple of issues that have popped up during this time frame. But I just want to make sure if there's some type of governor mandate that once you guys find out, we have, I guess, an emergency board meeting to have to discuss it. Because this is what happens. I have people calling me and contacting me, and I always say, please contact the Board of Cosmetology. And their comment is, well, you sit on the board. And I'm like, yes, but we haven't been briefed on certain things. So that's why I think it's a good idea.
Yep.
That if there is something that pops up regarding cosmetology, regarding estheticians or anything like that, we're sort of in the know.
Yes. Yep. I will definitely do that.
Thank you.
No problem.
This is Tracy Bravo. I was just curious.
Go ahead.
I was just curious if when we would know if the next seat is being filled, or should we, if we have someone that's asking if that's something they're interested in, should they still continue to reach out even though there's somewhat of interest already in the process?
Are you talking about for Frank Watley's position?
Yes, ma'am.
If anybody is ever interested, they're welcome to submit an interest form. I do believe that, and Paige is, I do believe, on the phone, and if she could unmute, that would be great. I do believe there is an interest form that the governor's office is looking into to replace Frank. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen. Again, that's the governor's office appoints those, and Paige might know a little bit more. But anybody who's interested, those interest forms stay on file. It's not like it's just for that one position. It would stay on file, and then we, meaning Paige, would then reach out to that person and say, hey, we have a vacancy coming open. Would you still be interested? Because just because the positions don't come open until 22 doesn't mean something might happen and that person has to resign. It's better for us to have interest forms on file. But Paige, are you still on the phone?
Yep, I'm here.
And Paige, can you give a little update on I do believe there's an interest form for a replacement for Frank, what the governor's office has?
Yes. So we do have, we have someone who is being reviewed by the governor's office, and we will know for sure in September if there is an appointment decision being made. Do you need the name of it?
Nope. So Tracy, if you have anybody who's remotely interested, you're welcome to give them Paige's contact information, and Paige can kind of talk to them about, what kind of commitment it is, how often do you meet, what kind of things, and Paige just kind of explains what it's like and what you'll be doing as a board member, and then can make sure that they have all the appropriate forms to be filled out because they're the governor's office's forms. And then can assist in any of the questions on the forms. So anybody who's remotely interested, give them Paige's contact information. She can kind of walk them through the process.
Perfect. Thank you.
Even when we don't have vacancies too, like Sylvie said, we always are accepting applications just in case any positions come available.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about real quick?
No.
Nope.
You covered everything.
Oh, good. Ian, is there anything you want to talk about or discuss?
Yes, I do have one question, and because this question relates to the Oregon law test. Since so far I've known that we changed the law since January 2020, but some of my friends and some other people, they asked me if the test based on the new rules or based on the old version. So they do not, because there's some confusing which information they should take in. So I have that questions related to that exam.
So this is Corinthia. So when the new rules went into effect, there were a few questions on the laws and rules and also the other fields of practice examinations, and those were updated to reflect the current rules. I think I reported that in March in regards to that, but yes, is it to your answer? I would have to look at specifically how many questions on each of them, but that was reported in March, but yes to the answer to your question.
I see. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything else? Okay. The Board of if you think of something later, just email one of us. The Board of Cosmetology meeting is adjourned at 11:25 a.m.